Good morning and welcome to our Women's Wednesday Business Education Series with the Kansas City Women's Business Center. I'm Brandy Stitt, the Program Director. Thank you for joining us for our session today on WBE certification. Just a few quick comments before we get started. We are recording this session and we'll be posting the recording on our YouTube channel, which we will share. It takes us a couple days to edit the videos and get those posted. So we will share our link for that YouTube channel, and feel free to share that video with any of your other business owners that you think might be interested in this topic. And also feel free to check out some of the other sessions that we've recorded and posted there as well, as we are covering a wide variety of topics that are relevant for all of our small businesses that are facing some challenges during this pandemic. So feel free to check out those videos. At this time, I would like to go ahead and introduce Mary Shannon, who is our presenter today. She is the CEO of Connect Us Worldwide, and she's going to walk us through the various certifications that are relevant for women business owners, minority business owners, and all of the other disadvantaged categories that she's going to cover. So Mary, I am going to hand it over to you. You should be able to share your screen at this point.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending Is Certification Right for You? As business owners, we are facing some very difficult times. And so COVID-19 has allowed us to pause and to pivot and to look for new ways to grow and expand our businesses. So again, I'd like to thank you for being here today and going along with me on this certification journey. We're going to start off with today's learning objective, which is to develop an understanding of certification. The agenda: what is certification? The certifying groups: is certification right for you? The requirements, benefits, types of certifications, and the certifying agencies. I have my certification, now what? And capability statements. Who are we? Connect Us Worldwide. Again, I'm Mary Shannon, founder. We're a minority woman-owned business enterprise. We have 30+ years of corporate and public sector experiences, and those are in supplier diversity, public relations, project management, operations, and procurement. Prior to owning my own business, I was the supplier diversity manager for Hallmark cards. So I see myself today as sitting on the other side of the table. And so that is the reason why certification, I can speak to that, because as a supplier diversity manager, I was able to help suppliers to understand the process, how to navigate, and the importance of having the certification from various different certifying agencies. We serve diverse suppliers, which are minority, women-owned, disadvantaged, veteran, and LGBTQ. We also work with majority organizations in the corporate and public sectors. Our services: we do pre-application for certification. We have a secure portal on our website. We do coaching and development for business performance and readiness. We have access to key corporate and government contacts. On the corporate side, we build supplier diversity programs. We do public participation and engagement consulting and mediation services. Certification. Let's get started. What is certification? Certification is the first critical step in building relationships with government and corporate entities. Certification is a competitive tool, but it's not a guarantee of business. Certification refers to the authentication of certain requirements. So just like with any school that gives a certification or diploma, basically it's saying that you are who you say you are. that a third party or government entity has vetted you and you've gone through this process and now you're certified. The certifying agencies may include at the federal, state, or city levels, and there's also nationally recognized third-party organizations, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. This process includes the collection of business information, financial sheets, ownership data, and site visits. So again, the process is to vet the individual that is applying for the certification to ensure that all their business affairs are in order. Certification groups. The certification groups are, if we start with Black or African American, Hispanic American, Asian Pacific, Native American, and I'll give you a moment just to kind of read through those to see that they're very all-inclusive in those certification groups. Women, veteran, and LGBT. These are diverse businesses. Is certification right for you? Can you answer yes to each of these questions? Are you a diverse business? Is your product or service targeted at corporations or government entities? Does your business have the capacity to deliver quality products or services on large contracts? Do you have opportunities to expand, or do you want opportunities to expand and grow your business? And are you willing to share the details? So if you answered yes to those 5 questions, then let's take a look at the requirements. You must be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. You have to have 51% ownership, management, and control of the business. So basically, when you go through the certifying process, they want to make sure that you control the day-to-day business. There have been circumstances and situations where maybe the husband owned the company and he gave his wife 51% ownership. Well, if she does not operate the day-to-day, control the business, has the majority voting right, and a lot of that information will be stated in your operating agreement. So that is the reason why a lot of the documents that are required, such as your taxes, again, your operating agreement, profit and loss statements. So you have to be willing to submit that information in order to prove that you are, once again, who you say that you are. You have to be a profit enterprise. You cannot be non-for-profit. You have to be physically located in the United States. So that means your headquarters. So even if you're abroad, your headquarters has to be in the United States. If publicly held, once again, 51% of stock has to be owned by a member or members of the certification group. And then if you're LGBT, you have to exercise independence from any non-LGBT business enterprise. So as we go along, if you have questions, please put those questions in the chat. I'd be more than happy to answer them. We don't have to wait until the end. We can get them answered as we go along. Benefits of certification. Certification enhances a company's exposure as a diverse business. You have access to corporate and government contacts, and it also positions you as a supplier in a highly competitive marketplace. You have access to capital. There's SBA guaranteed load programs. As a diverse business, when you go to a government agency or to a corporation and you're certified, that gives you exposure. And what I always told suppliers when they wanted to do business with Hallmark is that always lead with your capabilities. Hi, I'm John. This is my business. This is, our capabilities. This is how long we've been in business, so forth. Sell the business. And lastly, oh, by the way, we happen to be a diverse business. So never lead with, I'm a diverse business and I can help you with your program dollars. Because most businesses know that under the realm, and we'll talk about more supplier diversity, there are dollars associated with the program in terms of being able to acknowledge that a particular corporation or even government entity is doing businesses with diverse businesses. So that's why the federal government, for an example, has set asides. Everybody wants to show, as a part of their corporate social responsibility, that they are supporting diverse businesses in their communities. It also is another benefit. It offers you networking and introductions. It leads up to relationship building. We all know that relationships are very important. And so with COVID-19, we've had to pivot and think about new ways to do relationship building. So for the most part, most of us are on Zoom calls all day long. And so it still gives us an opportunity to connect and to build those relationships, which are very important. It also enables us to have entry into corporations and work with their supplier diversity advocates. Again, being in that role, supplier diversity managers are charged with working with diverse suppliers and helping them understand how to navigate each of their corporations. They're all a little bit different. And so that advocate can be the person that will get you to the decision makers. So never think that a supplier diversity manager or the staff or team is a barrier or a roadblock. It's very important to get to know them. And once you do, and show them what you're capable of, and start building that relationship, they're great to have in your corner. Being certified shows a level of commitment to prospective customers. So basically, with any education, it is shown that you have taken another step to go out and get this certification. So when suppliers ask about doing businesses with corporations and they say, are you certified? And you can say that you are. Again, it's just another feather in your cap. Supplier diversity. What is supplier diversity? Supplier diversity is defined as a process of finding, growing, integrating diverse suppliers into the execution of corporate strategy. Corporations support diversity and inclusion in their hiring. Therefore, supplier diversity is a business strategy. It focuses on supporting suppliers from underrepresented groups, such as minorities, women, disadvantaged, veterans, LGBT, and disabled. So when you approach a corporation, they have a supplier diversity program, you have your certification, you begin to build those relationships. And this is just another framework in terms of diverse businesses. A business that's owned by a diverse member of the population. Businesses are deemed diverse due to their size, their location, or other groups that are socially or economically disadvantaged. So you have your minorities, your women-owned, LGBT, disabled, service-disabled veterans, and your veterans. Supplier diversity by the numbers. According to the Hackett Group in 2019, they did a supplier diversity study. Companies attribute 10 to 15% of their total domestic spend to their supplier diversity programs. There's a group called the $1 Billion Roundtable that works with the National Minority Supplier Development Council. And this group has spent $1 billion. They spend that annually with MBEs and WBEs, and they've had this practice since 2001. So these 28 corporations are all of the major Fortune 500 or 5,000 corporations. They're located across the country. And so pre-COVID, you could go to an expo or a conference that the National Minority Supplier Development Council was holding, or WeBank, WeBank for Women. When they used to have their expos, you can go and meet a lot of the corporations, and a lot of those corporations that were in attendance were a part of the BDR, the $1 billion roundtable. So these companies are just basically reaching out and saying, yes, we do see the benefit in doing business with diverse businesses. We're there to support and help them to grow and develop and understand how we can help them to scale their companies. AT&T spent between 14 and 17 billion each year, which is about 20 to 30% of their total domestic spend. So AT&T is very, very committed to doing business with diverse suppliers. In 2017 alone, 77 billion was spent by the BDR, and these 28 corporations now include veteran-owned businesses, service disabled, and LGBTQ. So they've kind of cast the net wider and saw the importance of being more inclusive and bringing in the other classification groups. Now we'll get into it. When we talk about types of certifications, I know the screen is a little bit busy, but it's very important to be able to look at the agency, the certification, the term, and whether or not or how often the frequency is for site visit. Once you go through the certification process, there is a site visit that's being conducted. And so they go out and sit with the owner of the business. And the reason for that is to ensure that there are individuals that are saying that I own, operate, and control the business. And so based on the questions that they're asking, only the owner who has that 51% should be able to answer. So if we start with the city of Kansas City, Missouri, the types of certifications that they have is MBE, WBE, so your minority, your women-owned. They also have the DBE, which is a disadvantaged business enterprise. The ACDBE is used for the airport project. So if you were wanting to do something with the airport, you would apply for your DBE certification as well as the ACDBE to work with the airport. Also, the city has the SBE, which is your small business enterprise, or your SLBE, which is your small local business enterprise. And then the WSDEPS is the Water Service Department Engineering Professional Group. And so this particular one, the WSDEPS, is you do not have to be a diverse supplier to apply for this this particular certification. They are race and gender neutral, which is a good thing. And so this doesn't keep you from applying from the other ones if you're a minority or women-owned. It just allows you to have more breadth in terms of the different contracts that you can apply for. And when you apply for that particular one, you can be a general contractor on that particular certification. So it's a great one to look into as well. When you look at the terms Most of your certifications are going to be on an annual renewal basis. And then with the city, it's at their discretion as to when they will do that site visits, but they will let you know in advance that they're either going to be, probably in today's times, will probably be calling you on the phone. You have the state of Missouri and the state of Kansas. Missouri does your MBE and WBE. The state of Kansas does MBE, WBE, and DBE. The one thing about the DBE, or Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Certification, DBE is a federal certification with an annual renewal. And with that program being under the federal guidelines, if you were a business owner in the state of Missouri and you want to do business in Kansas, Missouri, Colorado, etc., you are able to do business in those states as well when you have that DBE certification, because again, it's federal. So federal is going to be consistent from state to state. Each state has the discretion to just accept your DBE certification from the state that you registered in, or they might ask you to fill out another form or add something to what you already have. When we talk about the federal government, okay, the federal government has different programs for certification. I think most people would be familiar with the WOSB, which is the Women-Owned Small Business, or the EDWOSB, which is your Economically Disadvantaged Women-Owned Small Business. The 8A program is a program that they have set asides for these particular contracts. And you have to have an adjusted income of $250,000 or less over 3 years. You definitely have to be a small business. And the definition of a small business is what the SBA provides for us, depending on your NAICS codes. So if you're familiar with the federal government and their registration process, there are NAICS codes. And most of us know as business owners what our NAICS codes are, because that tells the group that you fall in. And there are certain NAICS codes that are assigned. And if you're a small business that has that small NAICS code, then you might be eligible for set-aside programs. So that's important to keep in mind. So don't forget about the importance of having your NAICS code identified. Your 8A program is a 9-year program. The first 4 years of the program is basically you're in the developmental phase. And then your last 5, you transition out of the program. So this program, you do have to be 51% owned by a socially or economically disadvantaged person in order to apply for 8A. Again, 9 years. And then we have also, for the federal government, your service disabled, a veteran-owned small business, and your hub zone. And a hub zone is known as an historically underutilized business zone. They have 3% of all federal contracting dollars each year set aside for hub zoned certified businesses. If you're hub zone, you have to have 35% of your employees that live in a hub zone. And a hub zone is basically an urban or rural community. And your office has to be located in an urban and or rural community. So that will take care of our federal, state, and city certifying agencies. When we talk about...
Hey, Mary, I'm sorry, we've got a couple questions before you move on. Is that okay if we go ahead and address those?
Oh, that's perfect, Brandy, thank you.
Okay, so the first question how much scaling can a business become before it becomes ineligible for these certifications? So I think the question is related to income, like personal wealth, personal net worth, I think is really what the question is looking at, and maybe size of business.
Okay. Well, most of them have stipulations, whereas you have to be in business for at least 6 months. And then the rule is, again, for your 8A program, your adjusted income for 3 years has to be $250,000 or less. So you do have requirements not to, for like DBE, not to exceed, I believe it's 2.4 million. So each one is a little bit different in terms of the maximum that your income has to be, or your revenue. But most of them are doable because they're working with small business. And so they're trying to ensure that the revenue criteria is doable and accessible, and it's not a barrier to get the certification.
Great. So the second question, can you have both a WBE and a DBE?
You can. You can have both. You can have multiple certifications. So I have multiple certifications. I'm an MBE, a minority. I'm a WBE, a woman-owned. I have DBE in the event that I want to do business in other states. I have that as well. So you can do multiple. I have a client that has 5. Her company, she is woman-owned. She's a DBE. She's an LGBTQ, etc. So you can acquire and apply for multiple.
Great, thanks. That was it for questions, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. So when we talk about third-party certifying agencies, we're going to start with the NGLCC, which is the National Gay Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. And so their certification is the LGBTE certification. It's on an annual renewal. And like the other certifying agencies that are on the national level, most of them have regional affiliates. And the NGLCC for Missouri and Kansas is the Mid-America GLCC. The National Minority Supplier Development Council, or the NMSDC, on the national level, they certify only for minorities, and their term or their renewal process is annually. And then on a regional or local level is the Mountain Plains Minority Supplier Development Council. And that council is headed by, for Missouri, is Marvin Lyman. And so he's there. Most of your third-party certifying agencies work with corporations, and so they have a lot of networking events. So these agencies make sure, agency as in terms of the councils, work with corporations, and they sponsor and put on different networking events. So it allows the diverse business to have an opportunity to be introduced to corporations and to help them to understand what value they bring to the table and how they can support that corporation's business. And so you will see that not only with NMSDC, the NGLCC, but the NVBDC, and that's the National Veterans Business Development Council. And those certifications, if you're a veteran-owned business or a service-disabled veteran-owned business, their terms are annual. And when we talk about these third-party certifying agencies, last but not least is WBENC. And that's the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. WBENC is on the national level. They certify WBEs, and they also do certifications for the WOSB, and that's the Women-Owned Small Business, which is, you saw that, and I spoke to that under the federal government. So they are, or have permission, I should say, to not only do the WBE for women, but to also do the Women-Owned Small Business, which is under the federal heading. On a regional basis is your Women's Business Development Center, the WBDC, and that's headed by Kelly Patterson. So these agencies have been around for some time. The NMSDC has been around for 50 years. WeBank has been around for about 25. And the NVBDC has only been around for about 7 years. And so they're new, but even though they are, in terms of certifying veteran and disabled veterans, they have modeled their application process after NMSDC and WeBank. So they certify veteran-owned and service disabled of any size. So that's kind of what their sweet spot is, to ensure that veterans, as they transition into, as they say, back into society, not only from a workplace perspective, but as veterans transition as business owners, they want to be there to support and help and guide them as well. So again, I know this is a lot of information, but this is just to let you know that there are different types of certification. So when you think about the question, is certification right for me? Then you begin to think about who do I want to do business with? Is it with the city, state, or federal level, or is it with a corporation? And so therefore, you have different certifying agencies that you would need to do the processing through that particular entity. Okay, we're going to take just a few minutes to go through the different types of certifications, which I think is very important. Again, when asking yourself, is it right for me? The DBE, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, again, it's a federally mandated program that's administered by the Department of Transportation. You have to be socially or economically disadvantaged. An individual's personal net worth should not exceed 1.3 million. You must meet the SBA standards, and again, goes back to your NAICS codes, and your average gross receipts are not to exceed $24 million. I've already kind of explained that this particular certification gives you an opportunity to be able to apply for another state, and that outside agency has their discretion to accept your current certification or to ask you to fill out additional paperwork. LGBT certification. The opportunity for LGBT business owners to differentiate themselves from their competitors. The LGBT Chamber of Commerce works closely with their members and helping them. One of the benefits that they give if you're going through their certification program, they do have scholarships. They do the mentoring and leadership training as well, and business development tools. And so again, I think you will see somewhat of a step and repeat process with each of the agencies in terms of the different programs that they offer and the mentorship and leadership they provide to businesses that go with their particular certification. Another example is that if you're a member of your affiliate chamber, the national NGLCC will waive your $400 certification fee. So just another perk, if you will, with going with the LGBTE certification. And again, more and more businesses are casting the net and bringing in not only minority women, but they're looking at being more inclusive with veterans and LGBTQ. MBE certification. We saw on the last chart that you could do your federal, state, or city, or you can do the national recognized third-party organizations. And then I've kind of explained the longevity that these organizations have been around. The NMSDC has 23 regional affiliates across the country, and Mountain Plains is one of those. And I believe Mountain Plains will cover Missouri, Kansas, Colorado, and Nebraska. Getting their certification, you do have access to free workshops and seminars and matchmaking. And so again, with COVID, most of your certifying agencies have Zoom or webinars that you can attend the training just to keep everybody kind of in the know as to what's going on. And again, as we look for new ways to expand, marketing, I think is rising to the top if it wasn't already, in terms of staying visible. So people will know that you're there. Because during these difficult times, we must say that there are several businesses that have had to close their door. There are businesses that maybe even by the end of the year will not be in existence. So it's a great time to reach out to your current clients and to let them know how you're doing, that of course you're still open for business, and again, look for other opportunities with those businesses that you currently have in your client base, to see if there's other things that you can do for them. Looking for new ways to expand the services that you offer. So those are all the kinds of things I think we all need to do today, so we can stay viable, and that we can continue to bring value to the clients that we have. SBA certification. We all know SBA is the U.S. Small Business Administration. They do have access to capital. They have the SBA's guaranteed loan program. And so if you'll recall, I believe it was March 27th, that President Trump signed the CARES Act. And under the CARES Act, that was a $2 trillion act. It was the largest we had ever seen in history in terms of what that act and those dollars provided. So under the CARES Act was the individual stimulus and unemployment. There was that $600 that was given, I believe it was started in March and it ended July 31st. And so there's great discussion going on as to how that $600 will be handled between the two houses. So we should be hearing something soon. Why do I bring that up? Because a lot of suppliers, businesses applied for the PPP and for the EIDL loans. And so we know with the PPP, it was basically or primarily for payroll reasons. And you could also, it was like in the beginning, it was 75% for payroll. And then 25% was for mortgage and lease and etc. And if you took those dollars and applied it to your payroll, meaning that you either kept your employees on the payroll or you brought them back. And then if you had employees who didn't want to come back, you would need to hire. So net, you had the same number of employees that you asked for dollars to cover. And so hopefully companies have been able to get the PPP loans. We know that there had to be a second round because some of the smaller businesses were not able to get that loan. which was, I believe, the 75%, which I think they've since changed, because that all has been so fluid under that program. But if in the beginning, the 75%, which would go towards payroll, was had loan forgiveness. And then anything that wasn't covered was, I believe, 1% interest amortized over 2 years. And then you have EIDL. EIDL was another program, as we talk about access to capital with the SBA. EIDL, you went directly to the SBA for that particular loan. You would go onto the SBA's website, and that is where you would apply. Because, of course, the SBA has lending institutions that they work with. And that particular loan at the very beginning was giving a $10,000 grant that business could take advantage of and kind of get things going and underway, of taking care of some necessary accounts payables. And that particular loan, I believe it was, the loan maturity was for 30 years, a maximum of 30 years. And for a non-for-profit, it was about 2.75%. And for a for-profit business, it was 3.75%. So hopefully, someone in our audience or several in our audience was able to take advantage of those loans, because the SBA is still asking or taking applications for the EIDL or the EIDL loan. We talked about the 8A program, that it's a 9-year program, that there are set-asides for that program. There's mentoring, etc. And then we have the woman-owned, the WSB, which has 5% contracting goals on them. And then we talked about the Hub Zone program, created to assist businesses in economically depressed areas. And then for your veteran-owned businesses, there are set-asides and sole source contracts for your veterans. And that's a 5% contract goal for the federal government. And this is the city program, and this is offered by the city only. It enables eligible MWBEs to expand their participation into the city's contracting opportunities. You only apply through the water department, their engineering. Again, the program participants, there is no regard to race, color, sex, religion, age, etc. And then there's 5% bid incentives to the SLBE firms that will qualify. So if you're interested in doing business with the city of Kansas City, this might be a program that you would want to look into as well in terms of getting your certification. Again, you can have multiple. The other plus was that the small business that was awarded could function as a prime contractor, and they would not have goals, and they would not be required to have minority or women own goals. A lot of small businesses come in as subcontractors to your general contractor. So this is a way that perhaps if you're large enough and or you do maybe a joint venture, form a partnership with another company, and you go in for a particular RFP, you can be a prime contractor, and it's a great way to get that basically on your resume, if you will, when you're doing your next RFP. WBE certification, and that's your, of course, your veteran business enterprise. There are 2 types of certifications at the federal level and third party. We've talked about your third party certifying agencies, which is the NVBDC and NAVOVA. Both certify regardless of the size. Another certifying agency that's been around for some time is the CBE, and they do veteran-owned business certification. However, the VA is restricted by law to certify only small businesses when the other two have no size restrictions. And if you get your NVBDC certification as a veteran-owned or service disabled, they can fast track your application. So if you've already been certified through the NMSDC for minorities, WBENC for women, or NGLCC for the LGBTQ, you can fast track, which means that it would shorten the time span that your certification is done. Certifications normally take up to 90 days of process time. So this is pre going through getting all the documents and all of the prep work that you need to actually do the applying. So there's prep work, there's on the front end, and then once you get all that done and your application is submitted, then it's going to take another 90 days. And so with that being said, it's very important that if you know who your target market is and who you want to do business with, and you know certification could be a benefit to you, it's like, don't wait. Because you don't want the RFP to come out, or you don't want the opportunity to present itself, and then you go, oh my God, I need to be certified. Well, in that case, and when you think about the runway, you might not make it. So just something to keep in mind as well. DBE certification. We talked about the federal, state, and city level. We talked about WBENC, which is your third-party certifying agency. WBENC has 14 regional partners across the country. WBDC, which is our local certifying partner, with mentoring and educational programs. And again, they can certify you with not only your WBE, but also your WOSB. And so just recently, a few months ago, I had some information about the WOSB, which is under the federal contracting program. And effective July 15th, you could go online, and I'm going to make sure I have this right. I took a little note. You could go online and do your WOSB certification on the SBA's website. But the SBA will eliminate the current self-certification, because basically what you were doing, if you didn't go through a third party, you could go to the SBA's website and self-certify, which means there was less of a vetting and there was less vetting, so it was self-certification, a little bit less stringent than it would have been if you'd have gone through a third-party agency. So the SBA is going to eliminate the self-certification option, and that's going to be effective October 15th. So just keep that in mind as well. Now, when we talk about women certifications, we also need to talk about women's services. And so the Women's Business Center is a great resource for women's services. And I have listed the services that they present to women and helping them to grow and to mentor them. And so, Brandy, if you would, could you, if you don't mind, could you speak to the services that the WBC provides?
Yes, thanks, Mary. I appreciate this presentation and this opportunity. So the Women's Business Center is one of about 120 nationally certified SBA women's business centers. So we're partially funded by the Small Business Administration. And so we are able to provide a variety of services based upon their support. The majority of our work has previously been done in one-on-one counseling. We're doing all of that still virtually via phone calls and Zoom. So certainly that is something that is open to you, especially those of you that are going through this session and thinking, gosh, I really need to explore more about whether certification makes sense for me. I need some help with the application process. I need to understand what is going to be asked of me in the site visit. That's certainly something that we can offer our support and assistance for you to provide a quick phone call or Zoom meeting to help you through that process. We also are a facilitator of the Launch You Business Plan program. This is a multi-week business plan development curriculum for very early stage, concept stage individuals. So you're thinking of starting a business, but you're not really sure what your next step should be. We'll walk you through that process in a group setting right now via Zoom. Everything's via Zoom right now, to help you figure out your marketing plan, your feasibility analysis, help you determine your financial projections. We do all of that. We also provide a variety of trainings and workshops. Right now, we're structuring these as our Women's Wednesday business education webinars. Eventually, we'll be doing live sessions, but right now we're doing everything virtually. We also help with micro lending. So we have a microloan program, but then we also work with AltCap that has another microloan and small business loan program to help companies that need to apply for those alternative funding sources. And then we have our Women's Capital Connection, which is an angel investment group. We make equity investment in women-led businesses. All of our investors are women as well. So it's women giving back to women through equity investing. All of this information is on our website, which is kansascitywbc.com. And you can also find access to future trainings on our events page, as well as access to the webinars from our past sessions on our past events section of our website.
Well, thank you, Brandy.
Yes, thanks.
You're welcome. So as you can see, there are several different services that are provided to women-owned businesses. Again, from counseling to workshops to microloans, educational programs. So it runs the gauntlet. So as a diverse business owner, minority, women-owned, veteran, LGBTQ, disabled, there are various agencies that would like to assist you in terms of helping you to grow. And again, we know the importance right now with everything going on, that it's even more important to be able to reach out and get those services and make sure that the value that you bring and the services that you provide are going to be needed going into the future. I have my certification, now what? Certification, again, is a competitive business tool. It's not a guarantee of business. You need to research the company that you're pursuing, understand what's important to the company. I'm going to move my slide here, and build relationships and be patient. So again, as supplier diversity managers, I would always advise businesses that wanted to do business with Hallmark that you have to be persistent but patient at the same time. Continue to build those relationships. Work with the advocate, the supplier diversity advocate, that can put you in front of the decision makers. Continue to look and assess your business. Do the business readiness. See if there's other things that you can do to make your business healthier or stronger. Look into the joint ventures, collaborative partnerships, etc. So as we go into or come out of COVID, we want to be stronger, and we want to know that, again, that the services that we're going to offer, or the products, that they're products and services that companies are wanting, or whether you're B2B or B2C, that what you have is definitely bringing value. Post-certification readiness. Are you ready to leverage your certification? Again, define your target market. Who is it that you want to do business with? Federal, state, city, or corporations? Research their issues, their buying behavior, and their competitors. Identify your competitive advantage. Know what it is that you bring to the table. Develop your capability statement. And we're going to talk a little bit about capability statements a little bit later, because it's very important, because it's your business resume. Register in supplier portals. Most programs have portals that you register in. For an example, the city of Kansas City, Missouri, once you go and acquire their certification, you're in a database. So when someone is looking for that particular product or service, you're in there, a search can be done, and you can be found. So we all know with SEO and the importance, even on social media, how important it is for our companies. If I'm doing a search on Google, one moment, I think my battery is getting a little weak, so I apologize for that. There we go. Thank you so much. So when we talk about SEO and the importance of when a consumer Googles your company's name, that you want it to be able to rise to the top. The same way when you go in and wanting to do business with a particular city, state, or federal, or you want to do business with a corporation, that you go to their portal. Each company will be a little bit different, but in the end, they will tell you what you need to do so you can be found. And then attend the matchmaking events that are now on Zoom to be able to stay visible, to see what others are doing. It's always nice to know what your own competitor is doing, and the different changes that they've had to make out in the industry as well. So when we talk post-certification readiness, we're asking ourselves, are we solid, profitable, sustainable? Can we scale? Are we competitive, competent, capable and flexible, and able to under-promise and over-deliver? When I think about the process in and of itself, I look at identification, your target market. Identify the problem that the company is having. So it's never a go to a corporation or to a government entity that have representatives maybe on site or on a Zoom call, or if you have that opportunity to engage and you introduce yourself. So maybe you're doing your 5-minute elevator pitch and you haven't did your research. So you don't know what the problems are that that company is having. What are their pinch points? If you do your research and you know that whatever's going on within that company, maybe you have inside contacts that you can find out what's going on, then you identify the problem, you understand their pinch points, and then you bring a solution to the problem. I understand that you're wanting to do X, and here's how we can help. Companies always want to know, whether you're large or small, what's your value proposition? What do you bring to the table? How are you different than your competitor? The other thing is cost savings. What is the benefit or impact that your company brings to the table? So we don't want to come in the door lowballing, but we do want to make sure that our costs are competitive out in the marketplace. So we want to make sure, again, to see what is going on in the industry. So doing market industry research to ensure that our pricing is what a client will bear for that particular product or service. And building relationships, can't say it enough. so important to follow up, to network, even though we can't get out and shake hands and do what we normally do, but we can be on those Zoom calls and we can make phone calls and we can keep that going. So when we're ready for 2021, we've taken the time to build those relationships. And then again, the process just starts over. So please keep those things in mind as you're looking at your various funnels and your strategic plans. Most of us have had to look at our plans and tweak those. So when you're looking at those plans and business development plans, etc., this is just a little process that I use and I work with my clients on to ensure that we're doing some of these things. Capability statement. What is a capability statement? A capability statement is a snapshot of your company that serves as your resume for your business. So just like in employment, we have our personal resumes, and that personal resume at a glance, they say the standard is no more than 1 to 2 pages. It tells about our work history, our education, etc. And so your capability statement is your business resume. It gives your qualifications and your experiences, and you can tailor it to your audience. For an example, there's a particular company that you want to work with. And so when you take your standard capability statement and tailor it, at the top where you have your logo, you might have the other company's logo on there. So it's kind of like doing a presentation where you might have both logos from your company and the other company as well. So you kind of want them to know that this is specifically done for them. If it's a matter of putting your capability statement in a portal, then it might be just a generic one. So it just depends. If you're just putting it in a portal because that's the requirements of that particular company, you have a capability statement for that. But if you have been having talks and been introduced and you're building the relationship, when requested to have your capability statements, that's when you customize. And basically, when we look at your capability statement, like your resume again, it's a very good marketing tool. And so this is just an example. There are various formats. This is just one where you're going to always make sure that your contact information is there. I have seen capability statements where the company name is there, but the actual individual to contact wasn't. So that's something to be mindful of. And when you think about it, we're all busy. And supplier diversity managers, whether it's at all levels, city, state, federal, or corporations, sometimes there's fewer people in those offices now. And so they might not have the breadth to go through all of the capability statements and try to figure it out. So it's better that you have one that's clear, concise, and at a glance, so they can understand what are your capabilities, especially if you know what the pinch point is or what the problem they're having. You can call out those things that are that would mirror up in your capabilities. When you look at past performance, you can even list projects that you've been on if that's relevant to the person that you're trying to pursue, if you will. Differentiators, very important. You want to, this section is definitely so you can define what differentiates you from your competitor. Is it the software that you use? Is it the number of people on your team? Is it that you're bilingual? Whatever it is, this is a section that you would put that information. And then company data. Number of employees, the number of years you've been in existence, so forth and so on. And then pertinent codes that you can include on your capability statement, your DUNS code, your NAICS code. You can even put the certifications that you have. And this, again, at a glance, they'll know you're certified, your NAICS code, that you are a small business, your DUNS, your Dun& Bradstreet. All the information gets right at their fingertips. So it's very helpful to ensure that this capability statement is one that, even if you have one, go back and review it. Maybe you've added some services, etc. So it's no more than you would do with your own personal resume. All right. In summary, certification can increase the visibility of a diverse business. You must decide if certification is right for you. What are the benefits to you and your company? What is it that you're trying to accomplish, basically? Who are you wanting to work with? As a diverse business, if you want to bring visibility, because it's a certification. Again, never lead with, I am a diverse business. Always lead with your capabilities. Here's what I'm capable of doing. Here's how I'm different. Here's where I can bring value. And oh, by the way, my costs are in line, and I just happen to be a diverse business. Is there a particular niche that you feel? Certain companies are just looking for certain services or products they can use for promotions or whatever is going on at that particular time. So you ask yourself, if I add this additional product or service, can I fill that particular niche? Are you willing to form a strategic alliance with other small businesses? Which is an important question to ask. And it's important because sometimes there are RFPs and opportunities where you might not have, your company's not large enough. And so if you do these strategic alliances, you can come together again on just that particular project. And then when the project is over, then you've had an opportunity to work with another business owner and build a relationship on as far as B2B. And then you must ask yourself, am I missing out on opportunities? Because again, it's not a good thing to wait until you're asked for certification, because the runway is 90 days. And then you have to back up and think about the preparation that you must do in order to get you prepared. So again, I am Mary Shannon, founder of Connectus Worldwide. It has been a pleasure being with you today. I'd like to say thank you for attending and going along with me on this journey for certification. If you have any questions, my contact information is there. We do work with businesses to help them to, on that, is certification right for you? We do business readiness and performance in terms of making sure that we are all prepared to go into 2021 on a better note, on a higher note, more enthused and pumped. A lot has gone on this year that has given us the opportunity to understand that we must continue on, we must strive. We have to as business owners. And so keeping that in mind, certification is just one of the many tools that we will need in order to move forward. So,
Mary, this is Brandy. We have a couple questions in the chat. The first is, where do we go to find the certification applications?
Okay. For each of those agencies, whether it was federal, state, or city, it's on their websites. For the national certification agencies as well, theirs is on their websites, and most of them will say certification or certify now or something to that extent. And that's where you can go in. They will, most of them will tell you what the requirements are, what paperwork you'll need to start pulling. And that's the kind of the big thing with the process. The required documents, your operating agreements, your taxes, your profit and loss, your resume, all of those things that they're asking just to ensure, once again, that you are who you say you are. So go to the website and, you know, that's where you put your application in. And again, we're here to help if you should need any guidance.
Yeah, and I'll just add into that some, depending on the certifying agency, some are going to be an online application that you're just filling everything in online and uploading documents. And some will make you download an application and send in a paper copy. So it just varies. The next question is, what is the cost of getting the WBE certification?
Okay, the WBE certification, it's on a scale, and I believe, Brandy, correct me if I'm wrong, if you have revenues less than $1 million, I believe it's $350.
Yeah, I think that's right. And that's specifically for third-party certifiers. If you're getting certified through either a city, state, or federal agency, there's no fee.
That is correct. So,
Yeah.
yeah, as Brandy stated, if you go to the government entities, federal, state, or city, there are no fees associated, but your national certifying agencies, there will be a fee that's on the sliding scale, and that would depend on your revenue. So less than $1 million, and then anything over $1 million and up, those costs would change. And there's also your annual renewal that you would need to pay as well.
So one more question, Mary. Is there some sort of resource that lists the type of service businesses that would be up for RFPs and relevant for these types of certifications?
As far as if I'm understanding the question, most of the time when it comes to corporations, they operate a little bit different. So there's no board or information that you can just go to because each corporation is, you know, operates differently. So by going to various networking events, usually that's when you obtain information that an RFP is coming out, or if you have a certain product or service, because basically speaking, whether it's the federal government and or corporations, they buy from A to Z. Janitorial services, engineering, IT, you name it. So more than likely, when you look at your NAICS codes, if it's a product or service, most of the time, there is a need for your service. Now, the government entities, they might post or send out information about an RFP coming out, etc. But it's going to be, again, a little bit different with your corporations because they're all individual entities that are going to do it a different way. And there's no boards or anything like that. So you just have to kind of stay informed. But as far as services are concerned, product and or services, pretty much all of them are in the mix.
Okay, Shirley has a question. The certification process can be confusing. So do you recommend self-certification?
Thank you for that question, Shirley. Well, let me put it this way. I don't really recommend it, and here's why. Again, when we talk about timing is everything. And so while you're in there, and it's a process that can be arduous and time consuming and frustrating. So while you're in there trying to get this done, you could be getting some help to get that process. So there's nothing wrong with self-certifying, but you just have to understand what you're getting ready to do can take some time. And then if you have help, it's going to speed that process up. So in the event that an opportunity does come along, you're ready to go. So, because I've seen people take 6 months to do, try to certify themselves or get their certifications done. So don't try to go it alone if you don't have to. But that's a great question, Shirley.
Yeah, Mary, I would agree with that. It's very confusing to go through the application process and identify all the appropriate documents. So certainly, we can help at the Women's Business Center. Mary can help with that as well. I know that, there are great staff in the offices that provide the certifications that can answer some questions. They're all very busy, but they're very knowledgeable as well, and do their best to help answer questions when they can. So don't hesitate to reach out and ask for help.
Absolutely. Brandy's 100%. It's a process that you go through. And then if you work with someone who understands the process, it's less frustrating for you. And then you can spend your time working on your core business and not trying to get yourself certified. So. Okay, so if there are no other further questions, I'd like to thank everyone for attending. And I do ask the question, what changes, if any, will be made based on what you've learned today? So I wish everyone the best of luck and much success for the balance of the year and the upcoming year into 21. Thank you for attending.